So we can officially start. This is FIDE Master Viktor Neustroev. Today we do our next workshop. The topic of our workshop is Italian game, and this six move bishop g5. Well, bishop g5 can be later played. It can be a little sometimes earlier. Yes, in some lines you can play bishop g5 earlier, but the key concept is to create a pin and provoke h6 g5, and this is what I'm going to tell you. So people are joining our workshop. Again, there is a recording of this workshop, and the recording will be published on YouTube tomorrow. However, I will always recommend to join in live, join our Zoom meeting. And in Zoom, if you have any questions you can ask, you can unmute yourself and say anything by voice, or you can just type it in the chat. So what is my YouTube channel? It's Tricks of Chess. Let me find it. And I'll share their link.
Toda la acción de Thunderbolt.
Okay.
Y mucho más. Ahora puedes tener Disney Plus a un precio.
Okay, I'll find it later. Let's focus on our topic today. Maybe somebody else will share my YouTube channel link. Okay, so what are we going to do? We are going to study Italian game, but first of all, let's some history from me. What can I say? I'm a e4 player, and I play e4 because I like e4 c5. I like these positions. I like playing like this. I like dragon with white pieces. I like to play against knight. My favorite one is, no, it's a different order. So it's knight c6. This. So my favorite one is this one, queen b6. The so-called Godiva variation. Sometimes it is played with a different order, so you play e6, d4, this, knight c6, knight c3, and queen b6 in this position. So this is what I prefer playing. Well, I like sharp positions where you have to think about different things, different threats that your opponent is doing on one side, on the other side. But the main problem is that when you play e4, e5, the game can be boring. And it seems that I found a solution here. Before that, well, first of all, what to play? Well, I'm very experienced with Vienna game. I played it when I was younger. I know how to play Ruy Lopez, and for example, I don't know if you can search it in a database and find it finally, but I was playing this, but Berlin killed it. I don't like anti-Berlin, but I managed to play it. So that's why I thought that bishop c4 is probably what I need to play, especially if I don't want to learn these lines of Ruy Lopez, these long lines. So that's why I decided to start playing bishop c4, and then, well, so here I was also analyzing knight g5, but I wasn't fully satisfied with it because black had initiative there. So knight f6, I do d3, and then I still do c3. When you play bishop c4, you have to be ready for many openings. So main ones are like this, Italian. It can be different. Black can choose approximately 25 different variations in the Italian game. And they can play bishop e7, which is the Hungarian defense. It seems that with bishop c4, I'm ready for all this stuff. Bishop e7, bishop e7 looks like a stupid move, right? So why they develop the bishop so slow? Why to e7? Doesn't it block the queen? But at the same time, it's a very solid decision. For example, Danya Dubov likes to play it. Have you seen their match that Daniil Dubov was playing against Hans Niemann. They played two matches. I'm talking about the one that they played in Moscow. Okay, so yeah, this is where he played the Hungarian, and you see, Dubov was better. Always, there were 5 games in this Hungarian defense, and in 4 of them, Black were better after the opening stage of the game. So looks like Hans Niemann doesn't know how to deal against it. But I, for example, found the solution. So this, bishop e7. Then we can castle, we can play knight c3. So what is better? Let's say castle first. They play knight f6, we play knight c3. They play d6. e5 is protected, so we need a4. We need to find a square for the bishop to escape. So castle, d3. So, and Dubov in such positions played bishop e6. In Hans Niemann version, it was slightly different. The pawn was on c3, the knight was on d2. And if you choose this setup with knight c3, so here you simply have knight d5, which can parry the bishop e6 plan. Now you have a compensation for the pawn. Well, it's definitely a favorable position. Pinning of the knight deserves attention. Well, so let me just show you about this position. So, for example, if they play an e4, then after knight d5, you take on e4, winning the pawn back, and you have a bishop pair. If they take on d4, which is the best move, then you can sacrifice there, but then the knight goes to e5, rook e1, and there is a long-term pressure. It's more than a full compensation. There is also queen f3, which does attack on d5 and b7. As for bishop g4, yes, and there is a game that I played in the title Tuesday, or it was a preparation before title Tuesday. There was a guy who played bishop g4. So here, definitely h3. And he decided to retreat to e6, then I played this move, but what if he does that move? For that move, I still prepared knight d5. And if we trade, then I'm going to play g4 and make the bishop bad. But what happens if they play this move? Now, if I play g4, they can just take, right? Actually, no, they cannot. I can take on e7 first, then play g4, and for knight g4, what did I prepare? The queen? What do you mean the queen? So, okay. Pawn is hanging. Which pawn? Okay. Pawn on h3 is hanging. I don't see how. So who can tell me how to play here? Drawn? So bishop g5, no, because bishop g5, they cannot block with a pawn, first of all, because there is a pin of that pawn. Bishop g5 fails, because if you play bishop g5, they can capture on f3. It's a check, queen takes on f3, and then they just take on g5, and this is where you are in trouble, actually. So let's delete bishop g5. It's definitely a wrong move. Okay, it's just knight d4. It's just knight d4. How does it work? So if they take, we take there, and we up a piece. There is no attack. There is no even pin. If they decide to retreat and save their bishop at the same time, here, well, if we move the queen, they take on d4. But here we have knight f3, we have knight e2, but the best one is knight f5, attacking the enemy queen. If, let's say, you don't have knight f5, just knight e2 works. And then you can successfully get rid of the pin and save your pieces. But knight f5 is sufficient to win. So they take there, you take here. So that's why bishop g4 there is not an issue. With knight d5, you can parry it. You get rid of this knight, which makes your g4 move stronger because there is no knight sacrifice. Okay, so the Hungarian defense is parried with this strategy effectively. That's why... Okay, John asks, how about knight d4 and queen h4? So queen h4 in this position. Yes, such a line exists, and here you have to play queen f3. It's not the only move, but queen f3 is the strongest one. And you still threaten to take, and you threaten to do that. What can he do? He can, what, move the knight? Because e takes d4 is losing, for sure. He can only... He can move the knight, but then it's basically the same. Then with queen g2, you successfully defend the king's position. Also, the queen is trapped, so it seems that what he can do is just take there, letting us take on h4. And in the endgame, without a piece, they should resign. Okay, fine. So that's why if bishop e7 and the whole concept of Hungarian defense is fixed, let's talk about main lines, which are knight f6 and bishop c5. So knight f6 can be played. The idea of such a move is to play d5 early, or, well, they attack the pawn, you have to defend it, and then they may continue with d5. This is what I recently played with white pieces. I didn't play successfully, but managed to have some opening advantage, and then I decided to analyze this line. This is fine. So you take, then you quickly develop your pieces. The best move for them is knight b6, bishop here, and you threaten to take on a5, so they have to defend it. Well, here I want you to tell me how white can fight for advantage. What do you think? There are several ways, but I want you to choose the one which is the most competitive one. So take the knight with your bishop. Well, yes, but then what? d4 looks aggressive. True. Not everything is clear regarding d4. Uh-huh. So you take the knight, you can take on e5, or you can do it in a different order. You can first take on e5 and then take the knight because it's a check. Bishop takes rook e1, and then you play d4 or f4, mainly d4. But if your opponent decides to play queen e7, which is the best move, then d4 this time fails. He can sacrifice the bishop for a pawn and then set a blockade like that. That's why just move the king to avoid any checks and continue with f4. Well, again, you won't achieve much advantage here, but look at your pawn structure and compare it to the enemy pawn structure. Isolated, isolated, isolated. And, well, you just have to develop your pieces, knight, bishop e3, knight e3. So, again, it's not winning if your opponent plays properly, but it's definitely favorable, and it's very pleasant to play such positions, especially if you understand what you should be doing. So, well, but usually knight f6, d3, then they play bishop c5, and it transposes to the line that we later can come up with. So, knight is attacking the pawn. Well, I also tried d4 in this position. For example, I played d4 twice in Moscow Open in 2019, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and it didn't went successfully. I lost one, and the other one I drew. Knight c3 is the name one. Yeah, but this is a well-known position. Yeah, well, what I played that move. So, for example, knight a4 is a mistake. C takes. Oh, no, knight a4 is bishop d5. So d5 is a must. I played bishop here. They played knight a4 in this position. Then this, and this. This is what I played. But again, I didn't find these positions interesting. So that's why I decided that I need something more complex, something where I can realize my best skills. Well, and then I started playing slow Italian with d3. So what I was doing here, let's say d6. Can you please remove it? Oh, come on. Okay, fine. Let's continue. But please stop drawing. If you wanna say anything, or you have a question. Okay, fine. I can fix it. Okay. So I banned this guy. It's not funny. Yeah, maybe that was just a kid. Fine. Yeah, bishop g5 here. Well, I just wanted to tell you what I was doing before that. So what I was playing was castle, h3, h6. So then I was playing a4 to let my bishop escape. They were playing a6 or a5. There are two common plans. Let's say this one, and then I played like slow Italian game with this, trading here, and I was losing a lot. I played 2 games in 20. No, I don't remember. 2023? Yes, 2023 in Greece in a huge tournament. And I wasn't satisfied with them. One I lost, the other one I drew, but this is not what I wanted. So that's why I started developing bishop g5 after I was introduced this concept, because bishop g5, if you look at the statistics, it's one of the top moves. Well, 53% here of players at masters level plays castle. 18 plays bishop b3. Wow. 13 plays knight bd2. h3 4%. b4 4%. a4 3%. Bishop g5 3%. So it's not so popular. That's why your opponent is unlikely to be prepared against this strategy. Moreover, nowadays it starts becoming more popular. Why? Because people need something complex, something where they can play for a win for both colors. That's why bishop g5. What is the concept of bishop g5? We create a pin, and this is a very annoying pin. So every time they move a queen, they retake there, and their pawn structure becomes bad. If they are castled, it's even worse, which means that we automatically provoke h6, bishop h4. They can play g5 right now, or they may not and do it later, but there is no other plan except g5. Well, what this g5 is doing, it seems that they lock our bishop on g3. It seems that these pawns are starting moving forward and attack our king, and we should castle to the other side, for example, but exactly not. We have a solid position even if we castle king side, and I'm going to prove it, just illustrating a few more lines here. Well, So let's say bishop h4, h6, bishop h4. This is a must. Well, they don't have any other chance to get rid of the pin because the bishop cannot return back. Well, in some lines it can, but for these lines we don't play bishop g5 immediately. We first prepare with such moves like castling or a4. There are two common plans in this position, and all of them consist of g5. So there are two strategies, a6 and a5. Two different setups. And both lines have their own advantages and disadvantages. For example, a6 move. A6 move allows you to play b4, a4, and later consider doing b5 when your knight is on d2. That will challenge the knight. I don't see that the knight can go on a5. It's potentially the object of the rook attack. But even if it goes there, we are likely to have the knight and cover this square. And let's say if you have the knight and your pawns are already advanced, one to a4, the other one to b4, the bishop is here, then with b5 and b6 you may just close this bishop. This is one of the common strategies. You can also play just before b5 and bring your bishop there. Yeah, very often they try to remaneuver the knight here. But every time when they move their pieces away from the center, we open with the center. Because it looks like the position is symmetrical, but not fully. They don't have a pawn on c6, which means that we are better prepared for a pawn breakthrough on d4. And we do it once we see that there is a right moment. For example, if knight h7, if knight e7, if such moves are played, then d4 makes a lot of sense. Well, I'm not saying knight h7 in this exact position, of course, but including g5, after including g5 and bishop g3. a5 is a conceptually different move. This time we don't have b4. We can try actually continue with these moves and still continue with b4. It's definitely playable. But seems to be less aggressive. What we can do, if so, castle, g5, bishop g3, and what happens now? So, for example, they can castle to the king side. Well, you may say that, well, they already advanced the pawns. What's the purpose of castling? I'll show you. Well, for example, in the game between... well, in the similar position, there was a pawn on a6 in the game between Mishra and Gukesh that we are going to analyze today. It was a6 played. And that position was met and knight h7 was continued. Anyway, let's say they castle, knight bd2, and now knight h7, having in mind the idea of the attack. Rook c1. Why rook c1? Well, it's just a helpful move and prepares d4. How does it prepare d4? Well, our rook may attack on c7 or it may go to c3 and join the king side if needed. Let me illustrate it. h5. And our reaction, well, h4 can be a reaction, then g5, knight goes there, and then we move the king and continue with f3 or f4, opening the position. But we can just continue with d4. Now, neither this nor that works because we can capture on c5, and that is definitely unfavorable for black. You should understand that these are two super good bishops. These are called Italian bishops. And capturing the enemy one is definitely an achievement. They may take your bishop too, but for that bishop you should have some compensation. For example, d4, what happens? If they take, you take, the bishop moves, let's say. Now we need an escape square for the bishop. So why they don't take? They simply don't take because there is a pawn hanging on h5. We exchange the pawn on d4 for the pawn on h5, which allows us to execute a strong attack. I don't think it's possible to continue with this move. Why this is not a good idea? Well, there is queen g6, but then it's bishop g7. So if we wanted to play that, we'd better first play e5. But maybe we don't have to rush. Let's just play this, bishop g7. We are a pawn down, but with such moves like h4 or even f4, we can open up the position and bring new resources to attack. Well, in this position, either this or f4. Bishop d3 or f4. It's up to you. This bishop is also tied down to the b7. White has a promising attack. What else? So the bishop must retreat. Then h3. They do h4. Bishop retreats. Now, how to continue the attack? With g4. You take, they take. And this is absolutely fine. Bishop e2. This makes a pawn poisoned. For example, if they decide to take, knight takes knight is already a discovered attack. And if they take on e2, we bring the knight back and save it. So let's say they play h3. What do you think? How to continue? The pawn on d4 is fine. We don't need to defend it. But it seems that they open our king side. And our pieces are crowded on the king side and in the center. Okay, Max suggests to advance the pawn. Which pawn? g3. Well, you make your bishop extremely bad. It's like a big pawn. So today the topic is the bishop g5 concept in the Italian game. Sacrifice the pawn. Bishop g3 first? Yes, for sure. But if you play bishop g3, what's the purpose of this move? If you'd better find another helpful move instead. So if you accept this trade, then what was the purpose of bishop g3? To cover the king? Well, it's a helpful move if you want to cover the... Well, but it's free here. It's already free here. You can play bishop g3 if you want, but what's the purpose if you're not going to advance the pawn? I mean, it's not a mistake, but I I don't think it's a favorable move. Actually, the concept is absolutely correct. Yeah, the concept of knight c4 is really good, but let's first secure our king's position and take advantage of the enemy king's weakness. So we played rook c1, and this move isn't useless. We use our rook to defend the third rank, and if needed, bring the rook to g3, especially if the enemy queen comes. Actually, the key idea for us is to let these pawn movements finally became weaknesses. I mean, this pawn march is likely to result into a weak position of the king. Can you repeat it, please? 91? Well, yes, you can, but what for? Just to exchange pieces and to attack on the king side? Well, yes, 91 is a helpful move. But this time you blunder the pawn on d4. So let's say rook c3. They take. Okay. They take, king takes. Queen f6, for example. And then we can do Brian's idea. Knight goes here. The third rank is sufficiently defended. We can even play bishop g3 if we want. Well, let's say bishop escapes, e5. Queen goes to g6, just king h1. The king is covered with the bishop, and this bishop is not a bad bishop. d4 is protected, still due to a discovered attack, and there is also a trouble coming. This rook can go to g3 or h3 or even f3 if needed. And the queen is likely to be... the queen is likely to experience serious problems. Okay, so let's say they don't take. Because, well, do they have to? No, they can just retreat to a7, let's say. And if we take there, they have h4, which traps our bishop. I think this line, c takes d4, h4, still deserves attention, but let's play something solid, h3. I don't think h4 makes a lot of... Yeah, well, I think we are going. Yeah, we will talk about it because we are going to analyze Mishra's game where he did this exact thing that you are talking about. So g4, for example, allows you to successfully parry this stuff with bishop h4. Looks like knight h4 should be the move, but bishop h4 is even better. How does he play? Now he doesn't have this diagonal to attack. Bringing the knight back means to make a pin. Okay, Laksha, you experience issues with your microphone. Can you please instead just type it in the chat? Because I can hardly understand because your microphone isn't good. So that's why I don't understand what you're saying, and that's why I cannot proper answer. If you send your question in the chat, I will tell you what exactly I think about this, about your suggestion or about your question. So please use chat. Well, those of you whose microphones are good, keep working, keep answering by voice if you want, or just type in the chat as you wish. So knight f6 means the knight will be tied down to the queen. How to play? Well, I found two moves, queen e8 and knight e7. Knight e7 is an unpleasant pin, and this knight can go to g5 now. So, for example, this, no, it's already the king being weak. And after h takes g2, you don't even need to take or move the rook. With bishop f6, you are about to deliver checkmate. So they take, you take, knight g6, queen g6, mate. The f pawn is pinned. Any other move, queen h8 mate. So that's why probably queen e8 is the best move. H takes, bishop takes. f6, it's pinned. Thank you, Brian. Yes, it's pinned by the c4 bishop. So f6 cannot be played. So h3, g4, bishop h4, queen e8. You take there. Well, they probably want to maintain this pin. Well, if not, if they, for example, continue with this move, still knight g5 exists, knight h2, knight e1. It's up to you what to choose. If the knight goes to e1, then you either open the f file, be accurate when the king is on g1, or you move the knight to d3. So let's now go back to this. And what happens? a5 was played, right? So that means b5 is weak, and we can take advantage of it by doing a pin. We're threatening with d5 now. For example, e takes d4, how you can play? C takes d4, probably bishop takes d4. Okay, so what would you suggest? Those of you who are already familiar with the concept I illustrated in the course, I'm also showing some games. Bishop c6, pawn takes c6, and then you still want to take on d4? I don't think it's sufficient. There is a better concept. There is a question regarding bishop e6. I'll answer it a little later, okay? Rook e1. D takes e3. Queen b3. What queen b3 is doing? On c3. You want to recapture with a queen. Okay, makes sense. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, but you need your bishop somewhere here on h6. C to d4, like that. Then bishop takes. Oh, makes sense. Yeah, queen a4, but they gonna give up here. They will probably play bishop g7 or something. Yeah, this is a very common strategy too. Pressure here, pressure there, and no pin anymore. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so knight b3 is a candidate move, but then d takes, rook takes, and the knight on b3 is not well placed. If you gain the tempo on the bishop on c5, at least I would understand it, but the knight on b3 is not on the right place. Even knight c4 is better. So rook e1. Rook e1, they take, because rook e1 you're about to play e5. They take, you take with a rook. You're a pawn down, but pressure here, e5 is coming, and the rook comes there. Pawn d3? Yeah, but there is no extra pawn. So pawn d3, queen b3 probably, or what? Knight c4, knight f1. Because, well, let's play knight f1. Oh, knight c4, what is better? Knight c4, and then knight e3, or maybe e5. Because I want to take on d3 with the queen. This is how I not only get rid of the pin, but bring my queen to the place of action. Then knight what? But the knight is not doing much there. So are you going to come to d4? If you play knight b3, the knight is not doing much. On d3, but wait. Well, yes, but your bishop is already doing a helpful task. I mean, are you sure that with e5 you... Okay, I don't fully agree with you. Okay, let's say I play something. So the pawn is hanging. Let's say I play this move. You play bishop d3. Directly taking d3. Yeah, but then knight a5. Yeah, but your pawn on e4 is mechanically blocked. To provoke a mass exchange. Yeah, that's true. So the king is not safe. So what's to play? Queen e6? You have this one. Yeah, it works. I think you should... maybe queen d7 is better this time. Maybe you should take here first and then play knight f5. Then I can take with a queen. Now the queens are traded. So... Well, we can trade queens, but this is not as good as the line I suggested. This is fine, but also d3. But if you lose there, then b7. Okay, fine. So it's better to open the position, and you should coordinate your pieces. They shouldn't be doing one certain threat on h7. They should be doing different things, tying enemy pieces. But the main force of your army should deliver this blow, for example, on the king side. And if they take there, you can do it with your rook, for example, coming to g3. The queen has to move too, but now queen a4 looks really good. Yes, and from a4, you can also transfer it to the other side if you push e5. Fine, so this is really good. Let's say that was... Okay, let's say they play queen e7. Well, because why do people attack if they already advanced the pawns there? Let's play queen e7, but even this fails, d4. So if they take, you have a center, and then you push and open the position more. Let's say this move, bishop b6, knight d2, and now they win a pawn. But here, you can open the position right away with e5. So take, and the bishop is poisoned. Of course, they are unlikely to take it, but even if they play something natural like bishop e6, it's still completely fine for you. So, for example, bishop e6, how to play? Should we take on d4 just? Or is there a better move? No, we can make a fork and win. Yeah. Yeah, so we can win a piece. Yeah, double attacks on this. So they have to castle then. And then we can take with a pawn. Now the number of pawns is equal, but look at our bishops. Look at the enemy king. The position, the character of the position is open. So knight e4, queen h5 is coming. So this is how this pawn march is stopped. Let's go back and talk about the concept of a6. A6, as I told you, allows us to play b4, a4, and later b5 when our knight is already on c4. That's the main idea. But again, how it happens. So let's say knight bd2, bishop a7, castle, they play g5, especially if we are castled, and we almost always castle to the king side. Bishop g3 and what? Let's say bishop g4. How else to continue the attack? h3. This is how we define the bishop to which diagonal he wants to occupy. So, for example, if he plays bishop e6, which is also similar to the previous line, which I didn't answer, I didn't get that. Sorry, I don't understand your question. Why do we castle first? Okay, good point. What other helpful move would you suggest for white? Because knight a5 is not a threat. So, for example, this, and if they play knight a5, you have bishop d5 first. Well, and if they play c6, then you take there and trap the knight, winning a piece back and later taking advantage of the enemy king's position. I played a game against international master Kevin Pavetto, and something similar happened. He continued with c6. No, he continued with knight takes d5, pawn takes. Then he played b5 because he didn't want his knight to be trapped. I played b4. The knight now got to the worst place. And then I opened the position with d4 and got a huge positional advantage. So that's why I think a4 is not required. What other helpful move you can suggest? a4. Well, b4. Well, okay, maybe b4 is a helpful move, but castle is a better developing move than anything else. So g5, bishop g3, let's say this, h3, what if the bishop retreats back to e6? This is a common scenario, but for this exact position, it doesn't work well. Brian, I need your help. Can you please tell me what exactly? Rook g8. Yeah, rook g8. Well, not now. It's white move. So what white should do? White should, and then do this. Just make sure that your queen is not trapped. Here it's not. For example, if they were castled, then after queen here, queen d7, and you would experience problems. But here, let's say they start with queen d7. You can take. No, you cannot take in this position. If you take, it's castle, and it's the same. Wait. So castle and you just go back. No. If you take on a6, you will get this. Yeah. If you take on a6, that's bishop f2. But you can retreat and then go to c2 and then open the position with d4 successfully. Okay, so yeah, bishop e6 doesn't work. As for our previous line, I think it could be approximately similar way. Okay, so b4. Now queen d7, for example, or what? Maybe g4. They want to open the position right away. Take, and bishop h4, and they cannot get rid of the pin. So let's say rook g8. how you can play. Well, they are threatening with bishop h3, but it's not actually a threat. And if you want, you can let them play so and even sacrifice exchange. Well, it takes a few tempi. And you mean this pin, but then where the queen goes. So they have to play rook g6. But if you are not ready to sacrifice exchange here, just play rook e1. Now bishop h3, nobody cares. They cannot invade your camp. Every time they move the queen, you can take there. And also don't forget of playing d4 or b4. Or b5, sorry, to pin that knight. So this looks like a fortress. They cannot take there. They cannot get rid of the pin. That's why the position looks good. Well, maybe they start with queen d7 first. But this is where you can already play b5. So, for example, take, now g4, fine. They can take with the queen and threaten to take on g3 because it's pinned. And some prophylaxis is required. Rook g8, who can tell me what black is threatening in this position? Check with queen, which check? Okay, they are threatening with bishop f2, that's right. Thanks, Arush. Thanks, Peter. They are threatening with bishop f2, and if bishop takes, it's a checkmate on g2. If bishop f2 rook takes, it's queen g3. So that's why d4, you block the bishop. They can take, but after queen a4, they experience issues. There is no discovered attack, moreover it's a pin. You're about to take on c6. So that's why the position is more favorable for white. In the course that was recently published, there is a game played, I think, by Gukesh with black pieces, and he lost. He lost to Prague, if I'm not mistaken, in this exact position. Well, the main problem was that the king is left in the center. So castling seems, castling for black seems like a mistake. Where, for example, where? So here, after they play g5, castling seems like a mistake, but not castling leads to serious problems of the king in the center. Yes, but that game, so yeah, this is what we are going to cover. The game against Mishra and Gukesh. So I think you got the concept. So we provoke a pawn march, but at the same time, this weakens the enemy king, especially if he castles. If not, then the king is in the center, is also the object of the attack. We are always ready to play d4, even if it's a pawn sacrifice. Now let's look at... can't black create... Yeah, yes. Well, then it's bishop takes, and if queen takes, it's d4, d5. Something like that. Yes. So let's say here, knight d2 and... So queen e7, you mean? Okay. Fine. Rook a1, yeah. So rook a1, bishop e6, what can I do? Well, if I take, I don't think it's so favorable. Let me just play this. Yeah, I'll do this instead. And if you take, I take with my knight, and then I do this exact thing that I wanted you to remember regarding b5, and then pushing b6, even if it's a pawn sacrifice on b6, because turning this bishop out of the place of action is achievement. Uh-huh. No, you cannot. It's a pin. The rook is... You mean you move the rook from a8 and then you play bishop c5? It's black to move. a4. So what then? Queen e6. So you want to take b5. Knight e7. Okay. Can I play this move? Well, both pawns are weak now. Where's the bishop? So what is better? Let's say take here. Pawn takes. Okay, so here I'm debating between d4 and rook a1. On the rook b1. So I want to play rook b1. Rook e. Okay, so fine. Let me go back a little. Maybe in this position I don't have to rush with b6. Yeah, let me play a better move. So let me play this. I cover the b4 square. If you want to play this, I'm gonna do that. Because I also... No, then I don't want it. Because if I do so, you do that. And after this... So what is the question here? I want to play rook a4 instead. I protect here. Uh-huh. Queen or pawn? Looks completely losing. I mean, it's the bishop is lost. F2 check. Of course, yeah, that's... Yes, you can, but what did you prepare for d4? Huh? You takes. Well, it seems white is better here. They didn't sacrifice any single pawn. No. This is where you do experience problems. Look at your pawn structure. It's terrible. So what, d5, then I transfer my knight to c4 and you lose. Well, I even right now can win a pawn already with this. No, this is a very problematic position for black. Well, they are not losing, but I think according to the engine, it would be like +1 and 5. Let me check it. I'll tell you. +1 and 7. +1 and 7. So when this move is d5, actually. No. This is not good. So when the knight is traded for the bishop, it's always favorable for white. Okay. So let's continue with our analysis. We have a lot of work today. The game that Mishra played against Gukesh recently, well, a week ago probably. I don't remember when exactly. It was the third round. No, the fourth round. And, well, I play c3, and I kind of recommend you to stick to c3, but he plays d3. He played d3, knight f6, and then he played... So when this game was played? Last week. Earlier this week. Yeah, right. Earlier this week. On Tuesday, maybe. So bishop g5, h6, bishop a4, h4, and they played a6. And finally transposed to the position that we met and we analyzed. Oh, no, not finally. Here. This is where it transposed to the position that we analyze. So c3, they played this move and knight bd2. So this is the position that I played. This is what is covered in my course. Same position appeared in the game that I played against international master Kevin Paveto. And g5, bishop g3. So if you remember, Kevin Paveto played knight a5. It's not a good idea. Well, I think castle is a good idea. This is what I've already shown to you. But Gukesh prepared knight h7, and it's not a good move. And who can tell me why such a move is not good? Well, looks like the center is closed. They are doing a side attack. The idea of this move is to protect on g5 and to continue with h5 and h4. But yeah, every time you see pieces moving away from the center, so even the knight goes to e7, you should consider opening the position with d4. Well, how does it work? For example, if e takes d4, the best way is to capture with a knight. Knight takes and the pawn is poisoned due to queen a4 check and then bishop f7. Well, if black wanted to attack, he shouldn't open the position. That's why he plays h5. And it seems that Mishra wasn't fully prepared, but managed to found a solution based on his understanding. So the best way to play is h4, and well, I would probably play h4. I would sacrifice the pawn there and continue it with knight d3, then aiming to open the position with f3 or f4 move later in the game. For example, if this move you take with the b pawn, then bishop b3, knight c4, and try to open the position with a5. Well, or what else can it be? Let's say this, bishop b3, takes, bishop d7, prophylaxis, and then instead you can open the position that way. You are down a pawn, but it seems that the enemy king is too exposed once the position becomes more open. Well, I don't know why Mishra didn't want to play it. He took on e5. That was a good move. Not the very best, but the second best. If he plays such a move, he should expect h4. h4 wasn't played. Instead, Gukesh played g4, and it absolutely illustrated that Gukesh was preparing knight h7, but didn't pay enough attention to d takes a5 move. It seems that he played g4 because this is what he found on the board during the game, but that wasn't the best way. So h4 was the best. What does it lead to? I think that Mishra calculated this line and was okay to play it. It's still playable. It can be this, knight h4, pawn takes h4, queen h5, threatening checkmate. Well, if they castle, it's bishop h4 and the strong attack. For example, it can be queen g6 and bishop f6. Wait, which move order to choose? I think this. First this, then that, and then bishop f6. Yeah, and if queen e7, it's still bishop h4 and very nice position. He is a piece down, but there are 3 pawns to compensate it and an attack. So that was the best scenario for black. But black chose g4, and that was a huge mistake. He wins a knight, but There are 4 pawns to compensate such a knight. The e4 is poisoned. Bishop g4. Well, h3 again, so the bishop should define the position. The bishop goes to e6. And bishop d6, queen d7. Now, let's trade. This is okay. King moves to d7. There is no discovered attack, but the only thing that black can... yeah, actually. So I think it was better just to take, and if queen takes, just go that way. So you want to play this, but it seems to be too slow. Three tempi are required. Not sure, maybe you can lose the pawn already. So it's better to attack these weak squares with your pieces. So that's the reason why he played bishop d6 to cover one diagonal. I think he thought that this is too solid. I mean, this is solid enough, and at least he doesn't have any risk to lose. Taking was a good idea, obviously. Yeah, knight d4 might be good. Well, no, well, knight d4 was played in this position, and that wasn't a good idea. So, what could he do? b4 a4 this time seems like a good idea. For example, b4, rook g8, threatening attack, king h1, c8 a4. Now it makes a lot of sense doing b5. The king's position is compromised. So I think this is a mistake because the bishop is hanging. There is also almost checkmate on a8. And if knight d8, you can play queen d3 and that pressure and so on. So yeah, this time instead of knight d4, b4, a4 is a good idea. Bishop d6 wasn't so bad, but even instead of bishop d6, it was definitely better to activate the knight that way, to cover more dark squares and to be able to do a check and maybe win exchange then after c8. Fine, but we have bishop d6 and this position. King goes to d7. He did that. The bishop is closed. That's why it's better to trade it rather than trading the knight and keep closed bishop. So c takes, queen goes to d5. And maybe queen b3 was a better move because queen b3 provokes a queen's trade and makes the position more open. Because our goal is to play this move and then promote the pawn. Yeah, that was happened in the game. But knight f6, discovered attack. And queen check and queen e6. So the knight cannot be captured. There is a bishop hanging then. What do you mean? No, the queen was on d1. The queen takes f3. So you weaken the king's position. I don't think it's a good idea. Then knight g5 can be also played. So you'd better, if you want to trade, you'd better do it through b3. No, queen h5 is a possible move, but so take, pawn takes, but this cannot be taken because then the pawns become weak. So in this position, he was it was still possible to play for a win. Rook e1. What is the idea behind this move? The knight is well, under attack potentially. So if it goes to d5, then it's this. And if knight d4, f4, f5. No, I don't think so. That was played in the game, and I'll show you why. So this move makes two pieces hanging, so it's a mistake too. Knight d5 is the best move, and then you can play rook e4. This is how you limit the knight as well as protect the pawn on d4. And after that, f4, f5 makes sense. But he played f4, f5 right away. So here, instead of rook e1, he played f4, knight d5, and he continued with f5. But then the d4 pawn is lost with a tempo. Check, king goes to e6. So he played that move, and even g4 looks okay. But somehow it was not sufficient to win. So rook h7, he wants the second rook. Rook g6 was played. This is where rook d1 was almost winning. So the rook d1 would protect on d6. For example, if knight d6, pawn takes d6, king takes d6, this is winning with two extra pawns. Rook ff7 was played in the game. Well, it's not a blunder, but it's not as good as rook d1 to attack on d5 and to prevent capture on d6. Well, this capture on d6 didn't happen anyway, but it could be. I think it was a good idea to play like that. This, check, king c6. Then what? Rook d8, right? But then this. Rook h5, and then you have to play what move? King c7, then this, and you're losing. Oh, you could just... Yeah, you can just take the rook and protect the knight. That's a good point. Yes, you can just take there and protect the knight. I was also wondering if this is a good check. Well, if you take there, they take here. So king c5 and then rook h5. But again, as you said, we can do this. This should be sufficient for a draw. Maybe even black plays for a win then. So anyway, knight d6 was a good idea. He played rook c8 instead. This protection. Rook h6, rook g7. So, well, why? It's not a blunder. If rook takes rook, the other rook is hanging on d7, and because of that, the pawn on c7 can be lost. Rook h g7 was played, but this means he sacrifices there. He played a4. This position is so complex. So knight threatens with some checks, but bishop c5, attack, and this is where he made a mistake. So black did have a chance to draw the game. Let's find it. That's difficult to find. So if you find, well, at something at least. I don't think there is a perpetual check, but okay, let's cover this line too. So if you find it, then you are better than Gukesh, at least at some aspect. He had 40 seconds here. So Brian suggested this move. I didn't analyze it actually. H8, but no, rook H8 blunders the knight just, and then you are down several pawns. The other rook makes more sense, but there is no perpetual check, I think. This, so check. Oh, no. This. There is a check there. No, this is a better check. And if king f4, it's this. Oops, it's rook e1. Okay, so it seems that making a rook move makes a lot of sense. And, okay, what should I do to escape? Let's say rook h1, king f2. What for? Ah, you are telling about this position. Well, they can take once, but they are not forced to take the second one, the second time. Let's include it. This is a draw. Okay, fine. No, it's not winning. So king, well, where did we stop? Here. So rook. Okay, king f3, check. Okay, then the king escapes there. This is a safe place because then bishop c3 can be stopped. Can stop checks, and yeah, the king escapes to d3. That's the concept. And if this move, I think it's even sufficient to play this. There is one more check. King here, check there. No, this looks unpleasant already. Okay, no, let's escape then. Let's escape to a2. This should be fine. Okay, so what he should do was actually rook d3, in which here. No, then he escaped further. Let me find this line. So king f3, check. This. Okay, king e1. And if you take, I promote. Okay, fine. Let's continue with the analysis. So right move was rook d3. Then, for example, rook d8. Neither knight c7 nor rook c7 works. For example, rook c7, check. And what? They have to block on e7 and sacrifice a piece. If knight takes c7, it's rook e7 mate. So that's why the only way to draw the game was this. And this is a repetition. And if the king tries to escape to h4, it's even knight f3. Because if he goes there, you can do this and simply capture here. And avoid problems with the pass-pawn. So, but Gukers did knight e2. That was the main mistake. And then the white king escaped. He took a pawn on e5, but the position was simplified quickly. And he is still 2 pawns down. So he played rook b3. This is where already Mishra didn't play well. He started making mistakes. What he should do is king c2, rook b4, g5, and no, this is not sufficient. No, actually, well, okay. So king c2 was better, I thought. g5, rook c7, take, g. Okay. Yeah, this is where he's better. Because, no, I'm not sure that this is a winning position. I think it's a draw. Okay, so rook b3, rook d6 was okay. So king c... so this is what he did. He sacrificed the pawn. If here he played this move, it was better. Why? Because then rook d3, so one of the pawns can be sacrificed. Let's say rook g4, rook c3, This is the concept, because this pawn will be promoted. Rook g8 to stop rook d8, because if you already play rook d8 and they continue with rook g8, then rook g8, and the other rook is distracted, after which we can promote. But here, rook a3, for example, driving the king away, then do this, and the winning plan is just bringing the king to a5, b6, and take on b7. This is what he missed. So here, if your rook is attacked, move it. And then come to the other side. For example, doing rook g7 would be already a mistake, because you can take that rook like that. Check, here, check, king moves, I don't know where. Well, g5, then you can play that move. This is a checkmate, okay. Or maybe there. Then this, and this is an easy win. Okay, fine. So this is how he should play to win the game, but he made he did a very long way to win. Well, let's just see. We're not going to analyze. It doesn't refer to our topic today. So finally, he advanced the pawn to g7. After that, it's completely winning. King goes to b3, and this is the next move. For example, rook g8, then rook g2 to defend, and rook f8 is the next move. Let's say rook f4, take. Then you can promote one pawn. He takes, you promote the other pawn. Or you can just deliver a check and bring your rook to f8, promoting the c pawn. Fine. So what I wanted you to learn from that game is that if your opponent does an attack in this opening, you should stop this counter attack with a counter attack in the center, even if it costs you a pawn. Because all the moves that your opponent have already played are likely to result into weaknesses in his position, like it happened in this game. So, for example, h4 wasn't played, but that was the best. But even without h4, white managed to achieve a huge advantage in this position with a dangerous pawn on c7, and there was no attack on the king. So if only here he took and played knight h4 and knight f5, he would win the game much, much faster. Fine. So that was a concept of bishop g5. Now let's talk about the concept of h6 move. What if they, in this exact position that we made, so they develop pieces naturally, d6, a6, a5, we play bishop g5. If h6 is played and they stop us, what we can do? If we cannot play bishop g5, we should at least use this tempo. So castle. The best developing move. We don't block the queen because we also intend to play d4. For example, if they castle, then my recommendation is b4 to take advantage of the bishop's position and also grab more space. a5 loses a pawn on e5. a4, a6, yes, it's playable, but then you win a tempo. You win a tempo. First, you win a tempo on h6. Second, you win a tempo on this move, because later in the game, bishop a7 still will be required. For example, you can continue with knight bd2, then let's say d6, a natural move. Well, h3, you may not play this move, but it's probably the most solid way. Bishop a7, rook a1, and bishop a6. This is what you are likely to meet. Well, what do you think? Trade, play queen b3, or what? Okay, the games played during that Grand FIDE Grand b5. Okay, we will talk about b5. The games can be found on chess.com at least. So b5 actually is a mistake, because if we have the bishop here and the queen is protecting our rook, then b5 works. Here, it doesn't work, so it's still not a huge disadvantage because we take two pieces, but we lose two pawns. So this is what I would avoid. Again, not a tragedy. If you missed it, you shouldn't give up. The position is still approximately equal. but it doesn't look attractive. Queen b3 is possible, but then queen e7. But you grab more space. What I prepared is bishop a2. This is a novelty. Why? Because after that happens, then with knight c4, you will be able to play b5. Let me show you. So let's say they trade. I don't know what then. Then this move maybe, this. Then what they can do. This, well, just anything. b5 works. And now this doesn't work because you have a rook that can capture here. And once you play b5, then b6 can be played too. Okay, so this is one of the concepts if they don't play h6. If they play h6, stopping us from playing bishop g5. What else? What if they don't castle? What if they continue with d6? This is a more natural way to play. If so, it's a4. a4, well, when they play d6, very often the e5 is protected. That means that they can use their knight. Well, this time it's not a big issue. After d6, we can they play knight a5, we play this, and then we escape to c2, for example. But a4 also allows you to create a threat. If your opponent continues with a6, I would recommend just to grab more space and then continue with this move. This is what is well covered in the course that I recently published. So, for example, what can be done? Let's say this, they play bishop here, you can take it, and then you can play d4 if you want, or you can play b4 instead, trade bishops. Yeah, trade bishops and play queen b3, knight d2. So it's a symmetrical pawn structure, but you have more space on the queen side, so you should be better. You already castled here. Like that. Not the only way, but why not? If they play e5, which seems to be more natural for sure, then, well, you can, of course, follow standard moves like knight bd2. And if, let's say, bishop g4, it's rook e1, castle, knight goes there. Then you can play h3 and knight g3 and get rid of the pin. And again, in case of this scenario, it still can be bishop a3. But this time, what do you think? Which piece it's better to take? Pawn, knight, or rook? Can you repeat, please, Brian? Well, the rook can retreat to e2. It's not such a big issue because it seems that that knight from g4 has to retreat too. So if you take with a rook and they do knight g4, you play rook e2, and then you can just play h3. Hmm. Oh, taking with the pawn, well, we already have the rook there. If we had the rook on the f file, then taking with the pawn could make sense. In order to reinforce d4, you don't really need it. You can play d4 without this move. And also, if there is a pawn, then every time you play d4, you lose your pawn on e4. So, so you want to sacrifice? Now your knight is hanging. You have to move it back, and what did you sacrifice exchange for? Well, let's go back. So taking with the knight isn't good because g3 is a better square. From g3 you control h5 and e4, so it will be easier for you to play d4. So my suggestion is a rook. Now, if they play knight h5, you have knight e5. So that's why they may prevent it with queen e8 move, but then already knight g3 and knight h5, knight f4 isn't playable. And then you open the position with d4. So white is slightly better. b7 and these are weaknesses. What else? There is also a very nice line I wanted to share. Just a sec. Let me quickly find it. It was a very nice idea. B5, no. It was in this A5 variation. Yeah, the main plan is to grab space and dominate. That's the concept. Okay, not in this position. Okay, let me show you what else I prepared. So knight bd2. So let's say they play bishop a7, rook e1, this, and now they play that move. Well, then, you can take and you can play bishop a3, like we discussed, or you can just play this move and then do d4, opening the position. And if c6, your bishop goes to d3, which is also a nice square. So this is a complicated position. Or instead of doing that stuff, instead of knight bd2, you can play knight e3, which I actually recommend. This is what Jan Nepomniachtchi successfully played against Magnus Carlsen recently. I don't know when, but this year. Knight c2 and bishop e3 was his concept. This is what we are going to continue with. So they finally got the position with a different order. d6 was played, a4 was played, and he reacted with a5, which is the most competitive response to a4. And Jan played knight a3. Well, the knight goes there, which allows the knight to support the bishop on e3, and once the bishops are traded, the knight can control these two squares, d5 and f5, preventing any counterplay from black. Castle, knight c2. Well, rook e8, what else to suggest? Because this bishop g4 strategy doesn't work so well this time. Well, it can be bishop e3, it can be h3 first. Let's say this move, I want to take and still I want my knight to be there. Let's say this, and then bishop h5. h3, then g4. The bishop will be blocked on g6. Magnus Carlsen just played rook e8. Bishop a3 was played anyway. So bishop a7, then we still take that bishop. That's why they took themselves. Knight takes and bishop goes to e6. Here, well, you can occupy d5 if you want, but probably when a5 is played, the best way is to exploit this pin and do d4 at some point. Well, the game continued with bishop d7, which is logical. And it seems that Jan Nepomniachtchi wasn't really prepared against this. So this is where I want you to think and tell me which plan would you choose for white. And I'll tell you what I prepared. Okay, do you want to know which move Jan Nepomniachtchi played? Okay, so I don't recommend knight f5 if it leads to this. Yeah. I don't think there is a difference. Even after rook e1, I don't think there is a big difference. So, for example, they can play knight e7 already. Then knight f5 is not playable. But after this move, you can play so. But they're gonna do the same thing. Oh, well, first you cannot do it, so you have to do something else first, and then they play knight g6, and then you can play knight f5, knight f4. Ah, knight h4. I don't think knight g6 is a good move. So, well, okay. The knight went to the edge. Yeah, g6, maybe g6 actually. But I, well, come back to f3, but what's the point? I think that with king g7, black consolidates. So what I think is d5 can be played. Let's look at d5. I'm threatening the pawn. Which? This? The e knight. Okay, fine. Rook d8. F3. F3. Black could just take the pawn. I just wanted to control the file. Okay. No, 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 no. Oh, this is how you can get the knight strike. I think taking on e7 should be played. Then knight f5 and then knight h6. Okay, so yeah, g5 doesn't work this time, but what works? D takes e4? No. Okay, king h7. So king h7 is sufficient. Let me just play this move. Maybe I play g6 in future. Because if I play g6 and you have your knight left on h4, it's a serious disadvantage for white. I think actually Zamfir is correct regarding queen f3. So you found the only move to not to stop this activity. Okay, let's say knight f g8, then g6. I don't think you can stop it. So I think that's Zamfir's idea with which pawn? Which pawn I'm losing? Well, no, there is no pawn that can be lost. G6. Oh, white is very close to, well, not to a loss, but to a very bad position. No, let's talk about queen f3 move here. I think it makes more sense. You move the queen away. Well, then let's say trade, pawn takes, and what can we say about this position? White seems to be better, but is it really such a good position? If queens are traded, I don't think so. Maybe rook e3 here. Then queen g3 can be played. Okay, and if I just play, okay, I just play king g6, king h7, and then I play g6. But I should be accurate. Oh, well, rook e6 is a helpful move. Rook d1, I take on a4. No, rook d1, probably not. Okay, so it's even. Approximately it's even, but my recommendation is to not play like... Oh, it's just a threat, it's not checkmate. Yes. Yeah, well, you can analyze this position yourself. If you want, the PGNs will be published on chess.com tomorrow. It's approximately even. So your activity is not enough. Yeah, well, let me just show you. Jan Nepomniachtchi played this move. Queen b3. Okay. Yeah, this is what I prepared. Queen b3. So which move to play? Well, I thought rook b8 just to defend the pawn because bishop c4 is a double threat. You should be accurate with the b7 pawn, but it seems it does make sense to capture. So if rook b8, which looks logical, then you can play rook fd1. I leave my rook here to be able to play to open the position. I'll show you. For example, if bishop is here, I move there, and then I continue with d4. But if, let's say, they play knight e7, similar to what Magnus Carlsen played in the game, then bishop takes, queen takes, and for this move I prepared queen b5. And if they don't want to lose a pawn on a5, black has to take. But this means that the a5 will be a weakness. So b6, and white has more space. This is where white is positionally better. So what he should do is like something like that. Well, I would say maybe even playing what? H4 with H5 ideas. C6. They can play C6, but then yeah, having the knight on C4. Maybe like that. This? Oh well. No, I want to play this move right away, actually. No, you cannot. You have to protect d6 here. Because no, then knight d6 and you lose a pawn. No, well, and you probably play this, and I can successfully support it for now and then increase pressure. So this is a favorable in game. So what I wanted you to learn that there is no immediate win, but this is where only white is playing for a win. So Nepomniachtchi played queen c2. Then, well, he could take there and then continue with b4, trying to create a pass pawn on the a file. But knight g6, so g3 was played. It seems that such a move covers these two squares but weakens the light squares. However, it's not such an important thing. So this was played, then queen c7, b4, takes, and bishop h3 was the best move. But what this bishop can do there? Again, for example, b5, knight goes to g4. I don't care, just queen b3. The queen cannot go to the king side, and without a queen, it doesn't work so well. Here, I don't know why, but Magnus played d5, and he simply blundered the pawn. Bishop d5, knight takes d5. There is a pin. If queen d6, maybe he wanted this pawn. But then it's knight e3, and capturing this pawn means rook b1 and rook b7. So b5, but then rook b1. So bishop b3 was played. Instead, Jan Nepomniachtchi didn't take. Probably he believed that he is missing something. So queen d6, rook a b1, threatening with a discovered attack. And finally, this discovered attack happened in the game. So this move was played. Here he should move his queen, but he took, which is common, but not for this position. For this position, he loses on e5. And after knight e7, Magnus thought that after knight e5 is fine, but black took with a rook. White took with a rook, and black thought that they can drive the rook away and then take on a5. But d4. Because of this move, I think Nepomniachtchi won the game. d4, and well, he took exchange, but now he is a pawn down, and also these pawns are too strong. The rook on a8 is too passive. He also continued with queen b4, which was another mistake. After that, it's f6, exposing the king's position, and finally it's bishop d5, creating a discovered attack. What do you think is the best move for black now? Well, queen g4 actually loses. So no, queen e5, queen g6, it's yeah. So that's why he either plays this move or, for example, sacrifices the queen. He did sacrifice the queen, but queen g4 loses too. h3, queen h5, so he keeps his queen protecting on g6. Otherwise, queen g6 with a mating attack, but bishop f7 this time. King f7 and rook b7 check. If the king comes to f6, it's queen c6, and then rook b5 and so on. That's why the king should move somewhere here, but it's still a winning position. After g4, they have to drop that knight. Even if they play queen h3, you take there. Wait, no, you don't, because then rook d1 is made. Okay. So then you can play queen c5 instead. And if king moves there, f7 is checkmate. If king moves there, then what? F7 is still... No, f7 is first checkmate. So if king h7, you promote to a queen and then you win. If king h8, then this, he cannot block. He has to move and then you promote to a queen. I wanted to a knight, but to a queen is faster. And then you checkmate on g7. So that's why even if he goes to f8, it's still checkmate. That's why Magnus Carlsen took on b1, sacrificing his queen, and then he lost his game. White didn't play ideally, but you see here, because the king is weak and because of such a pawn on f6, the king is much weaker. I mean, queen is much stronger than two rooks. So this is what finally happened. The queen invaded the enemy camp. f6 is protected. Now the knight occupies this, and this is where Magnus Carlsen resigned, because after rook a5, let's say, it's knight h6, knight f7, then discovered attack on g5 and checkmate on h7. So once again, from this game, I want you to remember the idea of Jan Nepomniachtchi did. So we played, they played h6, stopping us from playing bishop g5. We reacted with a4. And a5 stops b4 activity. Knight a3. Knight a3, knight goes there and there. b5 square can be used for the bishop. So bishop a6, bishop b5. Bishop goes to d7 and queen b3. So you can trade and play queen b5 to trade queens and pass the game to a favorable endgame at the very least. But I think that in your game such thing won't happen, and I'm sure your opponent gonna make a mistake earlier, and you will be able to take advantage of that. So all that is covered in my almost all that. This h6 line is partially covered, but this is what I wanted to share. So just on Friday, my latest course, the Spicy Italian Game, was revealed, and now it's on sale. So if you are interested, if you are an E4 player, then this is probably what you need, because, well, Italian nowadays is the most competitive opening. And yes, but if you are okay with them, well, in the games I played over the board, if I play e5, if I play e4, I usually expect e5. So, for example, at masters level, it's quite common. But why people play e4? Because they like open position, they like these tactics. But e5 is the main problem, because e5 leads to symmetrical positions where it's not clear. So you can learn how to play Italian game here in this course. So probably it's, at the moment, it's the best course, my best course. Well, and this bishop g5 idea leads to more sharp and more tactical positions compared to other Italian games. I'm not counting gambits, but this bishop g5 is a very, well, very natural, very problematic from black, and requires a lot of knowledge from black. From white, it requires understanding. So the course is on sale. This is the link. The other thing I wanted to share with you is our group lessons that we are doing on Friday. We are starting this Friday, the September 19th. And today and tomorrow is the last day to enroll, because on Tuesday there will be a different price. It will be, I think, $20 more. So it's not too late to join these group lessons. So these are live events, and this price is for 12 classes. 12 classes, each of them is 1 hour and 30 minutes. So that's a lot. And if you calculate, for example, it's about like $10 per hour or even less. We are going to work on game planning. This is the plan of the course of our group lessons. So each lessons we are going to cover, there will be homework, there will be the recording. So if you missed a live session, you can watch the recording, of course, and then do the homework. And there are two plans. You can pay the whole amount right away, or you can pay on a monthly basis. If so, it's a little more, but still very affordable. So it's like $49 per month, and there are usually 4 lessons a month. So it's about how many? $12 per lesson. So it's less than $10 per hour. Okay, thanks for those of you who already enjoyed. The recordings, no, the recordings of group lessons are private. They will be sent only for those who enrolled. So, but the recording of the workshop will be published. And again, so if you like the content I prepare and you would like to support it, would like to support my work, there is a PayPal donation button. So you just click this button, and then you enter the amount you want to donate. It redirects you to your PayPal account once you click here. Or you can do it through Wise, if you have a Wise account. For example, Europeans usually prefer Wise. Okay, that's all for today. Let's finish for now. If you have any questions, you're welcome. You can always message me either on chess.com or at just my email, tricksofchess@gmail.com. So hope to see you next Sunday. I didn't prepare a topic yet, but I will make an announcement on Monday or Tuesday. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.